Part 20. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 191. Finally, under Binghua's insistence, Kesha and Liangbing reluctantly agreed to this risky plan. First, Binghua and Kesha upgraded their divine bodies first. The battle line command of the female angels was temporarily handed over to Liangbing and Hizile. In addition, the inventory of the 4 angel legions was open to increase the promotion quota for the angels participating in the war. In the past, those who wanted to be promoted to the second generation of angels needed to achieve military exploits or outstanding performance, but now as long as they can come back alive from the battlefield and kill more than 5 enemies, they can directly qualify for promotion to the second generation of angels. After Binghua finished explaining some matters, he began to upgrade the super gene. The process of upgrading the divine body this time broke Binghua's previous concept of super genes. During the upgrade, Binghua fell into a quiet darkness. There was no sound there, and she couldn't feel the passage of time, as if she herself had become a part of the darkness. But in the outside world, Binghua's body was undergoing earth-shaking changes. The cells that had become extremely tough and still had some biological properties began to undergo drastic changes. The cells that make up Binghua's body seemed to have turned into a cell-level supercomputer, completely divorced from the concept of biology. At the same time, they began to frantically extract energy from the outside world and collect it within the cells to store it. As for these energy components, they are all highly compressed stellar energy extracted from nearby stars by the sky blade. The changes in the body continued, and the genetic engine mounted on the dark plane of the super soldier also began to undergo drastic changes. If Binghua's genetic engine originally located in the dark plane was only the size of a palm, it has now expanded to a size of nearly 1 meter. Like a complex polygon, it slowly rotates in the dark plane. At the same time, it extends into the surrounding dark plane with countless circuit board-like things, which appear extremely complex and mysterious. When Binghua woke up again, her sense of time was a little confused. She didn't know how long it took to upgrade, because she was in darkness during the upgrade and had no sense of time at all. But the voice prompt in Hexi's laboratory rang at this time. "Your Excellency, the Heavenly Sword King, your divine body upgrade has been completed. When it reaches 140 planets, Queen Hexi left an instruction for the Heavenly Sword King to contact him immediately after waking up." After Binghua calmed down for a while, he figured out everything and why he was here with Hexi. "I know, open the hatch and I want to go out." As soon as Binghua's words fell, the composite transparent hatches in front of Binghua opened quickly. Binghua stepped out without any pause, and patches of red lines from the angel armor appeared on his body along the way. When Binghua stepped out of the upgrade cabin, she, who was originally wearing white underwear, had returned to her former appearance as the Heavenly Sword King. If you want to say how Binghua feels at this moment, there are only 6 words that can describe it. It's better than ever. It's as if thoughts can extend outside the body and control everything within a few meters. Even if you don't look at it with your eyes, a picture similar to a scanned model will appear in your mind. Not long after Binghua's upgrade was completed, Kesha's upgrade was also completed. During this period, Binghua had already figured out the changes in the situation during her upgrade. Due to the needs of the plan, Kesha and Binghua upgraded their divine bodies together, and the female warrior's defense and offense were carried out according to the plan Kesha had left before. However, some angels in Hui group seemed to have noticed something was wrong, and on the 3rd day they began to change the defensive and offensive modes of the male angels. In an instant, several crises appeared on the female angels' front. He-11 and Liangbing reacted and quickly led their troops to support themselves, finally stabilizing the defense line. But this was like a test, and He-11 and Liangbing's response undoubtedly made the other party guess something. In the next few days, Nantian changed from defense to offense, playing extremely unrestrainedly. He-11 relied on the deduction of big data to barely resist the opponent's various surprise attack tactics, but the ordinary angels suffered heavy casualties. Often by the time He-11 or Liangbing's reinforcements arrive, the male angel has successfully evacuated, leaving only the temporary base in ruins and a large number of wounded. Now, although the female angel's defense line can generally be maintained, it is actually like a leaky sieve. The male angels can come and leave whenever they want. And with He-11's ability, he didn't dare to mess with the Legion soldiers on the front line, for fear of causing a collapse of the entire front line. The first thing Kesha did after upgrading her divine body was to take over the command and readjust the defensive formations at each position. By the way, he took advantage of the male angel's inertial thinking and severely deceived the male angel's troops who came to attack the defense line. The harvest was not small. After Kesha took over the command, the effect was immediate. The male angel calmed down instantly and did not dare to fight as unrestrainedly as before. In order not to prolong the war and reduce the sacrifice of the sisters, Binghua, Kesha, and Hexi Liangbing decided to implement the beheading plan immediately. First of all, after such a long war, the male and female angels have basically figured out their respective situations, including the approximate troop deployment of the other side and the location of their respective kings. As the founder of the Tiangong order, Huaye is not a good warrior. His location is on the Tiangong ship surrounded by layers of troops. Tiangong, this is a very special celestial warship. It is special because this warship does not have strong firepower, but it has a huge dark information monitoring range and super information processing capabilities. In addition, the Tiangong is the flagship of the previous King of Angels, Huaye. It is like a symbol of the royal power of the angel civilization and a representative of the orthodoxy of the King of Angels. Therefore, Huaye's vehicle has always been this battleship named Tiangong, which has never changed. There are always 20,000 imperial guards on board as escorts. In the past, Binghua did not have the confidence to break through this level of defense, but now Binghua was different. She had never been so confident in her own combat power. The first step of the plan was launched immediately after Kesha stabilized the female angel's defense front. The elongated front of the female angels began to attack the male angels, more fiercely than ever before. Chen Xing, the commander-in-chief of Huaye, was a little confused. He had just tested out the female angel commander to change the angel a few days ago, but what is going on with this desperate style of play? Is the female angel crazy? Lord Duststar, what should we do? The male angel who came to report asked. Chen Xing's handsome face wrinkled up, and he thought for a moment before answering. Let all legions defend with all their strength and give me a fierce counterattack. Be sure to give the female angel the maximum blow. Not counting the ordinary female angel attacks, Kesha personally led the elite of the Skyblade Legion to attack in the direction of the Tiangong where Huaye was located. Kesha sits on her golden throne that looks like a cross, like a goddess in charge of war and death. Under the sharp silver wings, no male angel is her enemy. In the royal court of Tiangong where Huaye was located on the Tiangong, Huaye was forced to withdraw from her usual hedonistic life because that bitch Kesha came on stage in person like she was crazy, so she was not afraid of dying on the battlefield. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 192. While Huaye was pacing back and forth uneasily in front of the throne, waiting for the latest news about the war, a male angel hurriedly flew into the hall, half kneeling under the high platform of the throne where Huaye was sitting, and reported loudly. Reporting to King Huaye, the angels led by Kesha have broken through our second line of defense and are now approaching the last line of defense. Huaye heard this and looked at the male angel below. There was an inexplicable pressure in his eyes, which made the male angel reporting below suddenly become nervous. Where is Suri? What is he doing? Kesha has already arrived at my doorstep. The male angel below warned carefully after Huaye finished speaking. King, General Rising Sun has died in the battle at the beginning of time. Now the person in charge of commanding the entire army is Lord Chen Xing. Hua Yes raised hand froze, and he put it down with some relief, coughing to cover up his embarrassment. Then what is Chen Xing doing now? Kesha is so arrogant, is he just watching quietly like this? King, Master Chen Xing asked his subordinates to report to you that the female angel suddenly launched a full-scale attack. Now there are requests for help everywhere, so there are no extra troops to support the king's defense line, so he specially asked his subordinates to come and request Your Majesty, please send out the Imperial Guard to rearrange the defense lines to stop Kesha's attack. The angel who spoke lowered his head and did not dare to look at Hua Yes' face on the high platform. The hall became silent for a while. Finally, Hua Yes' expression changed several times. He sat down on the golden throne and patted the armrest of the throne. Go and tell Chen Xing that I don't need to worry about him here. If he doesn't make any more achievements, he won't need to be the commander-in-chief. After saying that, without Hua Ye reminding him, the angel below resigned and left. Hua Ye did not break his promise. When Chen Xing got the king's willingness to send out the guards to organize the defense line, Hua Ye sent 30,000 of the 40,000 guards responsible for protecting the King of Angels to the front line to stop Kesha's offensive. As for the remaining 10,000 Imperial Guard soldiers, their defense is even tighter, because Hua Ye knows very well that his protection has now dropped to the freezing point in history. Silver brilliance flashed one after another in the cosmic space, and dagger-like daggers with forearm length were fired within 100 meters of Kesha, directly clearing away the surrounding male angels. Now Kesha has escaped from the cross-like throne and is standing directly in the space with the king's sword and pestle. She doesn't see any movement, but as long as a male angel comes close to the range of 100 meters around her, she will be eluded by the elusive silver. The blade penetrates the body. For a time, no male angel dared to approach Kesha on the battlefield, and they could only fight with her female angel within 100 meters of her. However, Kesha would not stay where she was. As she moved forward, she left countless corpses of male angels behind. This situation lasted for an hour or two before a slight change occurred. A group of male angels with more complex and beautiful armors than ordinary male angel warriors, all holding cross swords, arrived. Kesha finally restrained her sharpness a little and no longer ran rampant on the battlefield unscrupulously, because the weapons in the hands of these male angels, the silver blade she controlled from a long distance, could cut through them all at once. After several battles, Kesha learned that this should be the Guards Corps in the intelligence, the most elite unit under Hua Ye's command, and it seemed that there were quite a few followers. Taking an opportunity, Kesha retreated behind her own warriors and immediately contacted Liang Bing and Binghua outside the battlefield. Binghua, the first step of the plan has been completed. The Imperial Guards have been successfully attracted, and the number is estimated to exceed 20,000. Binghua on the other end of the communication nodded, looked back at the 1,000 fully armed warriors behind him, and said loudly, holding flaming swords. The most elite warriors of the Sky Sword Legion, you should still be wondering why you are gathered here. I can tell you right now that we are going to pass through the long-distance wormhole created by King Apocalypse, and go straight to Hua Ye's home base, the Tiangong, to kill that scumbag Hua Ye. Binghua looked at the angels who were lined up neatly and not whispering to each other, and was very satisfied that at least no one questioned his words. Although what I say sounds nice, as your queen I still have to tell you that our operation this time is extremely difficult. It is conservatively estimated that we will face more than 10,000 second-generation male angels. If there are sisters who are scared and concerned, you can withdraw now. I will never force it, and no sister will laugh at you, because every angel's life is his own, and I will not make a decision for you in a self-righteous way. As soon as Binghua said these words, many female angels suddenly showed embarrassed expressions, and finally dozens of female angels chose to withdraw. Binghua did not blame them wrongly, because this operation was a mission of narrow escape, but some angels had worries that they couldn't let go of, so they couldn't help themselves. The dozens of female angels who chose to withdraw left with faces of shame, and the other female angels present did not look at them through colored glasses. Seeing that several minutes had passed and no angel chose to quit, Binghua pulled out the king's sword 7 kills from the wormhole and raised it above his head. This beheading operation must be successful. The heavenly sword will win, and we are willing to follow the queen until death. The remaining 900 female angels also raised their flaming swords and shouted. Liang Bing, who was responsible for maintaining the medium-sized wormhole, felt as if his blood was boiling when he saw this scene, and he wished he could join in the beheading. In action. Okay, let's go now. Binghua put down the raised sword, turned around, and raised his silver cloak behind him, rolling up and down slightly as Binghua stepped forward. Behind him was a neat and solemn group, holding flaming swords, wearing silver armor, and wearing red cherry blossoms. A beautiful figure with her helmet pulled down and her visor pulled down. Hexi, are you ready? Before stepping into the medium-sized wormhole in front of him, Binghua asked Hexi on the communication channel. Don't worry, don't you believe in my sister's ability? I guarantee that the eggshells on the Tiangong will be eliminated as soon as possible. He 11, who was sitting on the throne of Tianji royal court and staring at several large and small projections in front of him, answered confidently. Hearing this, Binghua also felt relieved and silently thought in her mind, the second plan has started, the raid on the Tiangong. The next moment, Binghua's figure disappeared into the ripples of the wormhole in space. In an empty space, a huge celestial warship stood quietly there, surrounded by dozens of hundreds of meters-long warships that looked like ancient warships patrolling around it. Suddenly, in the monitoring center inside the Tiangong, an alarm sounded at the same time on the projection light screen in front of more than a dozen male angel logistics personnel sitting in their seats. Report, medium-sized space wormhole formation band detected, distance. What's wrong with the distance? Tell me. The male angel in charge of the detection center shouted and asked. Less than 100 meters away from the Tiangong's shield. The commander of the detection center was shocked. So close. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 193. Very close to the Tiangong's main ship, the universe suddenly became distorted, as if a hole suddenly opened. The next moment, figures with white wings flailing out like sloping waterfalls. Binghua, who was in the first place, raised the 7-killing king sword in his hand and pointed it forward, with a scorching red halo emerging on the sword. Behind Binghua, surrounded by female angels, a very special device, 1 meter in diameter and several meters long, flew out of the wormhole. The whole thing was as silver as a dagger, with sparse golden lines and 2 blue prisms on it. Crystal. Binghua and the female angels behind him slowed down their flight speed, and the special dagger-like device continued to move forward without slowing down. About 2 seconds later, Binghua felt a muffled sound that sounded like interference coming from the public dark channel, and the sharp front end of the special device hit a translucent white energy film. At this moment, various data streams flashed across large and small projections in front of He 11, who was far away in the Tianji royal court. Through the device that was in contact with the Tiangong's shield, He 11 finally obtained the detailed information on the Tiangong's shield. Here we go, let me crack it in 5 seconds. He 11 cheered himself up, and at the same time, on the sky blade where He 11 was, the scientific research girls everywhere also focused all their attention on the projection light screen in front of them, solving problems as fast as they could. Focus on the energy band above. Then the calculation data of these scientific research angels will be synchronized to Hexi, and Hexi will perform the final cracking alone. Just as He-11 solved the regular shield of the Tiangong, the male angel on the Tiangong also reacted. Quick, start the cannon and aim at those female angels. The Tiangong's shield strength has been increased to the maximum, and those female angels must not be allowed to break through. The Tiangong has entered the second level of alert. All the guardsmen stationed there have now entered various defense areas and are ready to leave the ship to attack at any time. Orders were issued one after another from all over the Tiangong. The originally peaceful Tiangong seemed to have been broken by calm waters and began to boil. Tap tap tap. Neat footsteps sounded inside the Tiangong, and rows of fully armed Imperial Guard soldiers with cross swords hanging on their waists staggered through the passages inside the ship and entered their respective defense areas. As time passed by the outside world, in the 4th second after the Tiangong's shield emerged, the special device that had been pressed against the Tiangong's shield began to emit waves of blue energy shock waves. The translucent Tiangong shield gradually began to fade under the repeated impacts, and finally a huge gap of 100 meters was cut out. The third part of the plan was successful. He-11 solved the shield of the Tiangong and opened the shield gap leading to the Tiangong. Binghua saw this and shouted in the dark communication. Soldiers of the Heavenly Sword Legion, charge into the Tiangong with me and behead Hua Yet. After saying that, Binghua held the Wang sword that was brewing for a blazing bombardment, and took the lead in accelerating out. It was like a burst of lightning, streaking across the starry sky and hitting the Tiangong's hull. Sisters follow the queen and break in. The next moment Binghua rushed out, more than 900 female angel warriors who followed also flapped their wings and rushed in through the gap in the Tiangong's energy shield. I saw white after images flashing continuously, and a female angel passed through the gap in the shield and headed straight for the huge hull of the Tiangong. At this moment, some of the raised parts on the surface of Tiangong began to deform, and the rectangular devices at the upper and lower positions flipped and merged with the 20-centimeter gap under the direct current, and the teeth in the middle began to light up rapidly. The orange energy arc flashed between these teeth for the next moment, and then became extremely bright, shooting out a high-voltage energy beam several meters long. A stream of orange-red energy beams shot out from the Tiangong in the direction of Binghua. The blue electric arc around Binghua flickered, 1 minute faster, dragging its long tail through the laser beam strike, giving the male angel on board the Tiangong the illusion that it was faster than light. However, Binghua could easily pass through these attacks, but the same could not be said for the angels behind her. I saw dazzling flames exploding in the starry sky, including many female angels who were blown away by the explosion and seriously injured. A female angel who was dodging the oncoming beam attacks was hit by a beam of light. Instantly, burning heat and severe pain came from the body part hit by the beam, and then the momentum generated by the energy explosion caused the female angel's body to fly around uncontrollably. This female angel knew that she had no chance to follow the queen into the Tiangong. She was extremely clear about the consequences of being interrupted during the charge and unable to increase her speed. A trace of crystal seeped out from the corners of the eyes behind the face of this female angel. She knew that she might fall here today. Looking at the sisters rushing towards the Tiangong in the distance, the female angel gave her last blessing. The next moment, she was like a target and was swallowed up by the explosion of fire from several beams of concentrated fire. Binghua took the lead to arrive at the outside of the Tiangong's hull. When he saw the muzzle moving towards his position, he waved the 7-killing king sword glowing with red light in his hand. The scorching red energy formed a straight line and poured out, as if the blade of the 7-killing sword had been lengthened dozens of times. It cut across the Tiangong's hull, leaving a red cut mark. Binghua didn't hesitate after that, and hundreds of silver feathers emerged from behind. Binghua flew close to the Tiangong hull, and pieces of silver feathers shot out, like a burst of silver feathers of light. In just a few seconds, more than a dozen turrets that were firing beams stopped firing, and after reducing the pressure on the rushing female angels, Binghua found an area nearby where the external armor of the Tiangong was relatively weak and stopped. The 7 Killer King's sword split into 6 daggers. Sword number 6, Sword Wing, attack array activated, target area in front. The next moment, 6 daggers shot out and pierced into the Tiangong's external armor at the same time. A heart-wrenching and harsh sound was heard, and the 6 dark silver daggers began to cut horizontally into a 6-foot-long sword with a diameter of several meters. Polygon. And as the cutting continued, it took less than 2 seconds for the dagger to completely disappear from the Tiangong's external armor. At this time, the female angels who followed Binghua's charge had also arrived in the area near Binghua. If Binghua did not complete the cutting of the Tiangong's external armor within the specified time, the angels would be blocked outside the Tiangong. In a passage inside the Tiangong ship that was not guarded by angels, 6 silver sword points suddenly protruded from the wall. The 6 sword points protruding from the wall were cut horizontally simultaneously until they reached the cutting mark of another sword point. After completing the cutting, the 6 sword tips retracted into the wall. Before 2 seconds passed, only a dull and loud bang was heard. A 6 deformed metal block with a thickness of more than 1 meter and a diameter of several meters hit the wall opposite the corridor. From the hexagonal wall hole, Binghua was the first to step into the corridor. Following her, a number of female angels quickly incited them to fly in. Then, without stopping, they all turned around and rushed towards the corridor in both directions. Go. The 4th step of the plan was successful. Break into the interior of the Tiangong. The elite angels spread out to attack, attracting the attention of the imperial guards on the Tiangong and providing cover for the beheading of Huayet. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 194. With 2 angels from each combat team forming a team, a total of 10 angels rushed into the bifurcated corridor and quickly disappeared from Binghua's sight. At this time, Binghua also spread his angel wings behind his back and began to float in the air. However, he did not choose the same direction as the other angels. Instead, he raised the 7 Killing King sword in his hand and returned to normal. He swung the sword several times and cut holes on the corridor wall. A triangle with a diameter of 2 meters stretched its legs and kicked on the wall, opened a door and flew in. In the invisible dark plane, as the angel teams dispersed, part of the map inside the Tiangong was also reflected in Binghua's mind, as if the dark map was being lit up. The same scene in the corridor was quickly regressing in the field of vision. 10 female angels flapped their wings and flew forward in the corridor, which was several meters wide and 4 to 5 meters high. At this time, a T-shaped fork appeared in front of them. The 10 female angels discussed it in the secret communication and decided to divide into 2 teams to explore the situation first. The sound of flying through the air was heard. As if they had rehearsed it countless times, the formation of the 10 female angels suddenly separated in rapid flight, with exactly 5 angels on one side. But as the corridors branched out more and more, the flying female angels would gradually be blocked and attacked by the imperial guards. As a group of 5 female angels flew through a bifurcated corridor, more than a dozen male angels suddenly rushed out from the side. The flying female angel reacted, and her flying figure quickly moved downward to dodge, and at the same time she raised her flaming sword to block. After hearing several jingling sounds and the collision of weapons, the 2 female angels were nailed to the wall by the cross sword in the male angel's hand, and the flaming sword in their hands fell to the ground with a clang. Only 3 female angels managed to escape the sneak attack. They watched the scene with red eyes and gritted their teeth and continued to move forward. The dazzling silver light disappeared fleetingly in the air. Binghua put down the raised sword and continued to move forward. Several male guards angels behind him covered their necks and fell to the ground, becoming the corpses of many male angels covering the corridor. Member. Binghua didn't know where Huaya was on the Tiangong, so he could only move towards the center of the Tiangong, breaking through the walls along the way and killing all the Imperial Guard angels in his way. A few minutes later, Binghua once again broke through the thick metal alloy wall and came to an unusually wide passage. The top of the passage is as luxurious as a palace roof, with strings of crystals and unknown metal hangings hanging down. Even the walls are no longer a stark metal color, but have turned into brown shimmering walls with exquisitely carved patterns. Binghua felt happy, feeling that he seemed to have found the right direction, and suddenly there was a neat sound of swords being unsheathed. Binghua turned around and saw a dense crowd, at least 200 male angels, lined up neatly on the side with the huge door at the end of the passage. He drew the cross sword from his waist and pointed it at Binghua. "Looks like I've come to the right place." Binghua didn't show the slightest fear and walked directly towards the male guards angels arrayed in front of them. "We can't let a female angel pass by." Some junior captains in the guards shouted, and then rushed out, and the other guards immediately followed suit. In an instant, a large group of male angels kept their basic formation and rushed over. Binghua stopped with an unchanging expression. The wormhole in the void behind him opened and connected to the heavenly sword weapons depot. In the next moment, nearly 100 afterimages glowing with a faint red light flew out from the wormhole. Among the dense crowd of male angels rushing towards Binghua, the dozens of male angels at the front reacted and quickly raised their swords to block. But there were too many attacks. At one time, more than a dozen male angels screamed and flew backwards to the ground, with flaming swords still stuck in their chests. "Spread out!" The angel in charge shouted quickly and quickly dodged to both sides of the corridor to avoid the attack. Some male angels even spread their wings and flew into the air without caring about maintaining their formation, just to avoid the large number of flaming swords shot out from Binghua's body. In less than 2 seconds, the originally orderly formation of the Imperial Guards who wanted to surround Binghua turned into a mess and became completely formationless. As soon as the micro-wormhole that fired the flaming sword stopped, several chains with silver blades at the front shot out, attacking the male angel who had risen into the air. Binghua was not idle during this period. A blade of more than half a meter long with no handle separated from the 7 killing king sword and flew towards the direction of the Imperial Guards. The next moment, a terrifying gravity field suddenly descended, and all the male angels in the wide passage were pressed to the floor and became lambs to be slaughtered. Even for a moment, the entire passage made a slight creaking and twisting sound, as if it would collapse in the next moment. Although almost all the male angels of the Imperial Guard were pressed to the floor, they still had a certain ability to move. At least most of them were trying to resist the gravity on their bodies and resume fighting. But Binghua's next actions plunged these male angels into despair. The scorching red halo, symbolizing destruction and extreme heat, converged on the 7 killing sword in Binghua's hand, and its dissipated terrifying energy caused slight dislocations and distortions in the space around Binghua. Binghua had no intention of fighting in close combat with these male angels one by one. Her target was Huaye, so how could she waste time here? So Binghua planned to directly use the flame bombing to take her away. After she upgraded to the divine body, the flame bombing could quickly complete the energy gathering, which was perfect for this situation. I saw the orange-reddish terrifying energy raging crazily in the passage, swallowing up the male angels suppressed by the gravity field, burning the entire passage, and destroying the nearby area as well. Instead of allowing the male angels to gain an advantage over Binghua, the narrow corridors turned into a tomb for their burials. This is probably something that the commander of the Imperial Guard did not expect. Just as Binghua was rampaging inside the Tiangong, looking for Huaye's location, Kesha, who was on the front battlefield, also encountered a great crisis. After Kesha attracted Huaye's Imperial Guards to the frontal battlefield where she was, her offensive slowly declined and she began to turn to defensive counterattacks to delay the attack. But at this critical moment, a large group of male angels suddenly appeared, cutting off Kesha's retreat, and surrounded Kesha between the two lines of defense of male angels. Kesha, who looked solemn, was surrounded by a large number of guardian angels and legionnaires, and was surrounded by male angels densely surrounding her. I didn't expect that Binghua's strategy would be used by the male angel. It seems that I was careless and didn't realize that I had a divine body after upgrading. Kesha's tone remained calm, giving the surrounding angels a sense of no panic. Undoubtedly, in this surrounded situation, it gave the surrounding female angels great confidence. Queen Kesha, it's not your fault. It's because these male angels are so cunning that they sneaked up behind us. Ruaning, one of Kesha's personal guardian angels, said without anger. That's right. I have thought of all the conceivable situations. But it was not within my expectation that I would be in this situation. But if they want to use these stinky fish and rotten shrimps to kill me, the heavenly Blade King, then they are too fanciful. After Kesha's words fell, silver wings with a width of several meters in all directions appeared, and they were spliced by dozens of silver blades. They opened like wings at the same time, and an invisible pressure suddenly acted on the hearts of the surrounding male angels. The reason why this happens is because the open silver wings are stained with the blood of countless male angels. Now just seeing the silver metal wings behind Kesha, the male angels feel chills in their hearts, and there is a desire to the urge to escape here. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 195. The thick orange-yellow fluid like lava from the edge of the melted alloy wall dripped onto the next layer, making a burning sound. The originally spacious and luxuriously decorated passage now no longer looks like it did before. Even if you told other angels that this place was a dilapidated ruin before, no angel would be suspicious. After the stellar energy and dark energy that make up the flame bombardment mixed and raged, the scorching air heated by dozens of degrees blew past the position where Binghua stood, causing her long black hair and the silver cape behind her to dance slightly. Taking the position where Binghua stood as the dividing line, behind her was still the magnificent and intact corridor, and in front of her were the tragic ruins mentioned above. He flapped his wings and floated over the hundreds of meters of ruins in front of him that were made by himself. Along the way, he could still see the black and unknown charcoal figure holding a cross sword in his hand. His original appearance was no longer visible. However, Binghua didn't even have the interest to look at the remains of these angels, and flew straight to the tall door at the end of the corridor. His vision suddenly dimmed, and Binghua entered an unusually wide palace hall. When he raised his head, he could even see the starry sky behind the glass crystal material on the top of the palace. On the ground in front of Binghua, except for a dark golden floor that was several meters wide in the front and middle and had wing patterns printed on it, the other areas were all smooth gray-black ground. Suddenly, an unusually familiar voice from Binghua sounded at the end of the silent hall, attracting her attention. Huayet. Yes, it's me. Sitting on the dark golden throne, Huayet raised a finger with a smile on his face and lowered his raised arm again when Binghua looked over. Sure enough, an angel will take the bait, but I didn't expect to catch a big fish like you. Originally, I thought it would be Liang Bing, but it's great to see you here. When Huayet said the last words, he could no longer conceal the excitement that was almost overflowing in his heart, and the corners of his mouth couldn't help but start to rise. Binghua saw Huayet sitting on the throne with a confident look, and couldn't help but frowned and spoke. What do you mean? Huayet stood up from the throne, took a few steps forward, opened his arms and spoke loudly. It means that you will die here today, or fall into the hands of this king. As soon as Huayet finished speaking, the originally dimly lit hall suddenly became brighter, and the corners that were originally shrouded in shadow became clearly visible. Only then did Binghua see a tall male angel standing next to the 12 load-bearing pillars wrapped with dark gold patterns in the hall. At the same time, dozens of guards had gathered at the door behind him. Military male angel. Binghua's eyes narrowed slightly. This scene was beyond her expectation, and she couldn't help but start to guess. Could it be that her intentions and today's actions had already been known to the enemy? 10th generation angel guards commanders, as well as my stronger guards commanders and deputy commanders, plus 50 elite warriors carefully selected from the guards. Binghua, you cannot escape today. Only falling or surrendering to this king will be your fate in the future. Huaya raised his right hand and spoke domineeringly, as if he had sealed Binghua's fate today. Binghua's pair of slender sword eyebrows had never been so wrinkled as they were today, and there was even a faint Sichuan character appearing between the eyebrows. The exquisite silver sword of Kisha in Binghua's hand flipped over, and the bright silver light reflected from the smooth sword passed past Huaya and the captains of the Imperial Guards. Huaya, you are not qualified to decide my fate. After saying this, Binghua's face lowered slightly, and the black hair in front of his forehead fell down to cover his face, making it impossible for the male angels present to see clearly what Binghua's expression was at this moment. Although it's a bit difficult, but I still have to give it a try to see if I can cut off your annoying head. After Binghua said that, he touched the ground with his toes, and his whole body flew out, even forming a faint spreading air wave around him. Protector King. The 10 captains of the Imperial Guard who were originally standing next to the load-bearing pillars of the main hall shouted in unison, and then instantly pulled out their long swords that were different from the regular cross swords and rushed towards Binghua. The dull explosion was mixed with the harsh sound of metal collision, and Binghua's heavy blow of the 7 kills king sword was blocked by 4 silver cross swords. A stream of air surged instantly, causing the surrounding scenery to blur for a moment, and causing the floor beneath the 4 captains of the guards who resisted the attack to sink several millimeters under pressure. You must know that both the floor and the walls of this hall are made of special solid alloy, the kind that can withstand the bombardment of the Skyblade main gun. But now, the slightest deformation has occurred due to the collision of individual forces, which undoubtedly shows what kind of terrifying power the king's sword in Binghua's hand carries. And just as Binghua pressed down on the 7 killing king sword, 6 silver sword blades thrust out from 6 directions on both sides. Feeling that nothing could be done, Binghua instantly sheathed his sword and fell to the ground. At the same time, the blue electric light on his body exploded back more than 10 meters, leaving the battle circle, which was equivalent to returning to his original position. The 10 army commanders who had just besieged Binghua gathered together in an instant and formed a simple battle formation. The silver cross swords in their hands were all pointed in Binghua's direction, completely isolating Binghua and Huaya. Binghua's eyes stayed on their weapons, and his heart sank. Dark silver weapons. Seeing this, Huaya laughed heartily and sat back on the throne. His fists that had been clenched in the dark also relaxed and he said, "How about Binghua, you are quite satisfied with the gift I have prepared for you. These are 10 top 3rd generation warriors equipped with dark silver weapons. Taken alone, they can compete with Suri for a period of time. If you want to cut off my head, you have to step over their corpses, but I don't think you have that ability. No matter how strong you are, you can't defeat 10 opponents of the same level." After saying that, Huaya still leaned leisurely on the throne, as if watching a good show, and several female angels were sent to rub his shoulders and fan him. Binghua's eyes did not stay at the 10 guards commanders gathered together, but kept staring at Zheng Zheng, who was looking at her with interest. Standing in front of Huaya, 2 on the left and 1 on the right looked extremely powerful. Of male angels. Binghua's intuition told him that whether she could kill Huaya, the 2 male angels who looked like door gods under Huaya were the key. But in the final analysis, we still have to deal with these miscellaneous fish that will hinder our actions. With this thought in his mind, Binghua also took practical action at the next moment. He raised the king's sword and killed 7 times. An explosion like a thunderbolt in the clear sky came out. The dazzling thunder exploded around Binghua, and headed towards it crazily. Spread around. The 2 angels with the powerful auras standing in front of Huaya like door gods, their eyes slightly widened. Dark energy suddenly appeared on the weapons in their hands. They swung forward and immediately dispersed the thunder and lightning rushing towards the side, allowing Hua to he was not affected in the slightest and fulfilled his duties as a guard perfectly. For a moment, the hall seemed to have become a minefield, and the surging blue thunder caught the captains of the guards a little unprepared and they didn't know how to deal with it. It's a joke to say that this thunder and lightning can electrocute 3 generations of angels like them, but it doesn't have any effects at all. First, it's the paralysis of the body, and then it affects energy perception and vision. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifen Si Wang. Chapter 196. Phew. Suddenly, the sound of sharp blades piercing flesh was heard. The captains of the guards who gathered together to form a simple battle formation immediately looked towards the place where the sound came from. They found that one of them had a string of blood splashing on his chest and retreated with a groan. The companion next to the injured guard's captain immediately swung his sword to attack in an attempt to force Binghua back. However, the development of the matter was beyond the expectations of all the guards' commanders. Binghua's whole body radiated extremely small and dense electric light. He also raised the king's sword in his hand and struck it down first, and then smoothly followed up with a sweeping strike. In just an instant, the 2 captains of the Imperial Guard were seriously injured. The remaining male angels also reacted and quickly surrounded Binghua. At the same time, they did not forget to raise the cross sword in their hands to cooperate with the alternate attacks. But Binghua's reaction at the next moment was beyond the expectations of all the angels present. The angel wings spread out, and Binghua jumped forward. The king's sword in his hand suddenly thrust out, piercing a surprised male angel, and then his whole body suddenly extremely fast spinning thrusts that defy the laws of physics. Blood spattered. The male angel whose chest was pierced by the king's sword was pushed back by Binghua. His chest was rotated and cut by the 7 kills king's sword, and a hole the size of a human head was drilled out, which was extremely bloody. Binghua stopped his spiral thrust, stretched out his legs, and kicked the male angel's body away from the king's sword. A low murmur reached the ears of the male angels present. First. Seeing this, the expressions of the remaining 9 Imperial Guard soldiers changed, and one of them quickly shouted, "Don't spread out, stay together. Don't give her a chance to defeat each other." Watching this scene, Binghua felt that it would be too time-consuming to find opportunities to kill one by one. It would be bad if Hua escaped, so he immediately issued an order on the control panel of the 7 Killing King Sword programmed in the Dark Plane. Enter the 7 Killing King Sword panel, activate the number 6 Sword Wing Attack Synchronization Array, and set the target to carry out random auxiliary attacks within 3 meters of the body. With a bang, the Wang sword in Binghua's hand split from the lines on both sides of the sword body. 3 silver long swords with only sword blades and no handles separated from each side of the sword body, and automatically flew to Binghua's left and right sides. They were suspended there like a pair of sword wings composed of swords. Just at this time, the thunder that Binghua originally released to interfere with the perception of the male angels dissipated, and only the extremely small arc on Binghua's body was still flickering. The next moment, Binghua rushed out again, still as fast, leaving only an arc tail trailing in the air behind him that had not dissipated in the field of vision of all the male angels. Binghua suddenly rushed into the remaining 9 guards commanders, and for a while, there was an endless clanging sound. Binghua held the thinner and narrower 7 kills main sword Tianming, and was surrounded by 6 handleless swords that automatically attacked. He had an absolute upper hand against the 9 captains of the Imperial Guard. The Imperial Guard soldiers who were on the outermost edge of the battlefield and were responsible for preventing Binghua from escaping looked at the scene in front of them, the shock in their hearts was almost written on their faces. They could barely catch the speed of the captain of their own Imperial Guard, but Binghua was like a flash of lightning from time to time, completely unable to keep up with the rhythm. How could he stop him? He couldn't stop him at all. Binghua swung Tianming to repel a cross-sword that was stabbed at him. At the same time, he did not look at the other cross-sword that was slashed from the side. He just stabbed forward with Tianming in Duanping's hand, and the tip of the sword just penetrated the man in front of him. Angel chest. There was a clanging sound, and the cross-sword slashed from the side was blocked by the floating handleless silver sword. The same was true for other male angel attacks, which were blocked by Binghua's synchronized attack array of sword wings. As long as Binghua focuses most of his attention on an enemy in front of him, he can maintain the computing load brought by this synchronized attack array. This is something Binghua never dared to think about before he obtained the divine body. Tianming pierced the chest of the male angel in front of him and slashed horizontally, leaving a larger hole in his body. Then Binghua accelerated again and rushed against the male angel to rush out of the surrounding guard's commander. 6 handleless silver swords followed Binghua out of the encirclement. On the way, Binghua raised his left arm and made a fist and hit the sword of the male angel in front of him, sending it flying away. Then, 6 handleless silver swords behind him simultaneously it shot towards the male angel who was knocked away by Binghua's punch, ending his life. This is also an advantage Binghua discovered when fighting these male angels. Her power is much stronger than these third-generation male angels. Binghua was a little uncomfortable at first, because when she fought with male angels before, she was always at a disadvantage in terms of strength, but now Binghua is quickly getting familiar with this new body that has just been upgraded to a divine body. Huaya on the throne, including the 2 male angels below who looked like door gods, and the deputy commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guard, gradually changed their expressions. Because on the battlefield in the middle of the hall, the corpses of angels would fall down from time to time, and they were all the commanders of the Imperial Guards who were besieging Binghua. Huaye's body, which had been lazily leaning on the throne, had sat upright again at some point, and the smile on his face gradually solidified, and the raised corners of his mouth returned to their original state. Hey, have you noticed that Binghua seems to be getting stronger with each fight? Although he didn't call anyone by name, the new commander of the Imperial Guard below knew that the king was asking him this question. King, I think you should leave the Tiangong no for now. I don't know if I can protect you from harm if this continues. At this moment, the situation in mid-air changed. Binghua found the right moment and angle and used the 7 kills master sword Tianming to block the cross swords that were slashing at her from the hands of the 3 captains of the Imperial Guard. The next moment, the 6 handleless silver swords surrounding the ice flower turned into ruthless hunters. Taking advantage of the weapons in the hands of the male angels of the Imperial Guard being blocked by the ice flower, they fired at the bodies of these male angels from blind angles. With just a few pops, the 3 male angels fell to the palace floor below amid splashing blood drops, and Binghua also fell with them, just like the female war goddess among countless blooming blood flowers. A slight buzzing sound sounded, and the handleless silver sword that had just penetrated the hearts and heads of the 3 guards commanders flew back to the sides behind Binghua. The 7th. The unusually dull voice rang in their ears just enough for the male angels present to hear. It was like a heavy hammer hitting their hearts, making their faces look extremely ugly. Binghua was feeling excited at the moment. Although she didn't show it on her face, in fact, apart from her love of making weapons, she was also a bit aggressive. Otherwise, how could she be so proficient in so many types of fighting methods? Most angels are considered elites if they are proficient in one fighting method or technique, even Kesha is the same. Hexi once complained privately to Binghua that Kesha's swordsmanship was actually very average, and fighting relied entirely on the assistance and blessing of the sacred language. Later, with the silver wings and silver blades, Kesha stood out from the 4 queens of angels and achieved the same level of frontal combat capability as Binghua. You must know that in the past, Kesha played the role of commander of the Central Army. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 197. The situation on the scene at this moment was completely reversed from the beginning. The one who was originally surrounded and killed should be Binghua, the intruder who invaded the Tiangong. But now it actually gave the male angels present the illusion that the other party was not a sneaking intruder, but an attacker who came in. Although there was a difference of a few words, the meaning contained in it was quite different. Binghua stood on the bright red palace floor. At his feet was an angel wearing the armor of the captain of the guards lying in a pool of blood. A little further away, there were 3 captains of the guards who looked at Binghua fearfully. It's not that these legion commanders are timid, it's Binghua who killed their pride and confidence. 10 beings who were considered to be the top among many imperial guards besieged a female angel named Binghua, but their number was reduced to 7 within a few minutes. Such a result made the remaining 3 guards commanders no longer have any expectations of whether they could win. Binghua shook off the blood stains on the 7 Kills main sword Tianming in his hand, lowered his body slightly and assumed an offensive posture, and the handleless silver sword behind him was also pointed forward in time to prepare for the attack. Seeing Binghua like this, the 3 guards commanders were shocked. They subconsciously raised their swords in front of them, but none of them had the idea of counterattack. The next moment, Binghua took a step forward and was already in front of a male guard commander. The main sword of the 7 Kills, Tianming, swung half a circle and fell hard, as if he was striking steel. He used the spine of the sword instead of the blade. Sword breaking technique, strictly speaking, it is just a way of using force. Hitting the enemy's weapon with a special attack method will make the weapon in the enemy's hand tremble and make it difficult to control. If the enemy is a novice, he may be beaten instantly. Flying weapons are one of the more commonly used methods on the battlefield. This was the method of using weapons that Binghua learned from his father when he was a child. Today he finally had the opportunity to use it. His previous opponents were all angels who were stronger than him, so this technique had no effect at all. When the ear-splitting sound of the collision of gold and iron continued for about a second before stopping. The captain of the guards who was blocking with a vertical sword retreated uncontrollably. He only felt pain in his wrist and the cross sword he was holding was shaking. Stop, seems to be about to escape in the next second. Binghua struck out without stopping. He leaned forward and dug a shallow pit in the ground with the toes of his silver metal boots and followed it up. The handleless silver sword, which had been left behind due to Binghua's extreme speed, also followed up, stabbing out like 6 extremely sharp knives. The retreating captain of the Imperial Guard was shocked and hurriedly waved his cross sword to block. After a few clanking sounds, there was an unusually harsh sound of a sharp blade entering flesh. After the captain of the guards used the sword in his hand to knock away 2 handleless silver swords, he was unable to avoid the subsequent thrust of the silver sword and was pierced through the arm and chest holding the sword. But this was not the most fatal thing. What made him most desperate was that Binghua had raised the sword of destiny in his hand. A popping sound came out. The male angel tilted his head at the last moment to avoid being shot, but it cost him half of his shoulder. Even so, he could not avoid the fate that he would eventually fall here. After Binghua slashed Tianming, he smoothly moved the knife, slicing the male angel's neck and almost decapitating him. And this moment happened too quickly. The commander-in-chief and deputy commander of the Imperial Guard who were approaching Huaya had just taken a step and hurriedly intervened in the battle. Another commander of the Imperial Guard died. Queen. Here we come. Just when Binghua was secretly guarding the commander and deputy commander of the Imperial Guard who seemed to be preparing to intervene in her battle, an unusually familiar female voice came from the door of the palace. A dozen female warriors holding flaming swords rushed into the hall and clashed with the Imperial Guard soldiers guarding the door. After a moment of confrontation, they successfully broke in and landed around Binghua. Queen, are we not late? More than a dozen female angels holding flaming swords flapped their wings and landed beside Binghua, faintly surrounding her in the middle. They raised their flaming swords to guard the male angels around them. No, but you shouldn't rush in. This is a circle carefully set up by the male angel. If you enter here, you will almost die. Hearing this, the female angels around Binghua replied decisively. Queen, sisters are not afraid of death, they are just afraid of dying worthless. So let the sisters come to hold back the male angels present. The queen must kill that damn scumbag Hua. Hearing this, what else could Binghua say, but the hand holding the sword unconsciously tightened. The commander-in-chief and deputy commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guard, who had already taken steps in front of Hua, silently retracted their steps. Now that the situation had changed, they retracted their decision to end the battle personally, intending to focus on protecting the king's safety. Seeing this, Binghua secretly thought it was a pity. She was just waiting for the two commanders of the Imperial Guard to leave Hua, and then she rushed in front of Hua at her fastest speed and cut off his head. However, he was not angry that his subordinates rushed to Binghua. Rather, he was surprised, because according to the plan, the subordinates he brought should be scattered throughout the Tiangong to attract the attention of the Imperial Guards. Hua's expression on the throne darkened. The appearance of these dozen female angels made him feel that the hall was no longer safe, so he stood up from the throne and spoke. Stop playing, let me, everyone, come together and kill Binghua. Hua's words cheered up the male angels in the hall. The next moment there was no verbal communication or any signal. All the male angels in the hall rushed towards Binghua's group of more than 10 female angels at the same time. In order to make the attack easier, some male angels even spread their wings and flew into the air to attack. For a time, Ice Flower was surrounded by male angels from all directions, including in the air. The dense reflection of the cross swords seemed to dazzle the eyes. Sisters, cover the queen. Without Binghua's personal instructions, the surrounding female angels spontaneously rushed out at the same time to fight against the numerous incoming male angels. For a moment, the figures of angels flashed rapidly in the sky above the palace hall, and the sound of weapons clashing could be heard continuously, accompanied by the falling corpses of angels, both men and women. In order not to waste the encirclement opportunity obtained by his subordinates, Binghua, who was not disturbed by the male angel, raised his main sword Tianming, and the handleless silver swords floating around him reattached themselves to Tianming the next moment and became the king's sword 7 kills. Binghua raised his head and fixed his gaze firmly on the creator of the Order of the Heavenly Palace in front of the throne. Hua in front of the throne felt an inexplicable chill in his heart. The next moment, Binghua's position in his sight suddenly erupted with a dazzling blue electric light. At this moment, Binghua exploded with the maximum speed boost of the thunder tactics. For a moment, the blue thunder snake twisted and rose in the air, and Binghua's figure disappeared from the place. Before Hua could react, Binghua's weapon had already arrived a few meters away from him, dragging out a long blue afterimage behind him. The king's sword Kisha Duanping in his hand stabbed straight into his face. Door. On both sides of Binghua were the commanders and deputy commanders of the Imperial Guard, who reacted and rushed to block him with their cross swords drawn from their waists. At this moment, time seemed to be still in the eyes of Binghua and Hua. The blue electric arc danced in the air, and the 7-killing king's sword moved forward slowly, rushing towards Binghua's chief and deputy commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guard with an anxious look on his face. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 198. Binghua, who was fanning his wings forward and rushing forward, suddenly felt a huge resistance coming from the 7-kill sword in his hand. A harsh sound came out, and a translucent blue energy film appeared in front of Hua, dividing the palace hall and Hua's throne into 2 worlds. The tip of the 7-killing king's sword, which reflected the silvery cold light, was blocked by the energy film and could not move forward even an inch. It only stirred up a few faint ripples on the energy film that was stabbed. Binghua's pupils tightened and she felt unwilling to give in. Hua was obviously just a few steps away from her, So could she just retreat in despair like this? The white wings behind him fanned the ice and the figure in the air sank. The next moment, his boots hit the ground and made two slightly sunken footprints, just in time to avoid the cross-sword slashing from behind. When Binghua's body had a fulcrum, he raised the hands holding the sword, leaned forward and opened his lips and let out a loud shout. Power was poured into the seven-kill sword from his legs through his right shoulder, and at the same time, the dazzling thunder energy came from the sword flashed, forming a dense thunder barrier around Binghua. The commander-in-chief and deputy commander of the Imperial Guard, who were preparing to continue attacking from the rear of Binghua, saw this and quickly retreated to avoid the sudden thunder and lightning. If they were hit by lightning of such intensity, even they would not be able to avoid being paralyzed. Hua Ye, who was admiring Binghua's helpless look behind the barrier, suddenly changed his face and subconsciously retreated. Because the original translucent blue energy film was actually pierced by Binghua's 7 kills, a small section of the sword tip had penetrated the energy film and entered Hua Ye's throne. Stop him quickly. Hua Ye was frightened and took a step back and shouted quickly. At the same time, he took a few steps back in a very ungrateful manner, distanced himself from Binghua, and at the same time took out his own king's sword and held it in his hand. The 7-kill sword that had pierced the energy film flipped over. Binghua held the hilt and slashed out fiercely. It was like cutting a translucent blue curtain, cutting a hole in the energy film blocking Binghua. Long, narrow, vertical opening. Just when Binghua was overjoyed and wanted to take the opportunity to completely destroy the energy film that protected Hua Ye, the big hole that was made quickly returned to its original state. The joy in Binghua's heart immediately dissipated without a trace. Although it was like completely destroying this energy barrier, the commander and deputy commander of the Imperial Guard who came from behind made Binghua know that he did not have that time. Binghua appeared on the other side of the hall more than 10 meters away after dodging and moving sideways, leaving behind a slowly fading blue arc of light in the air. Seeing this, Hua Ye felt relieved and began to give instructions to the chief and deputy commanders of the Imperial Guard who came to the other side of the energy barrier. The rest of this place will be left to you. I will leave here first and wait for the good news of your victory. King, I will give you Binghua's head. The commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guard raised his hand to Hua Ye's chest and saluted, and said in an unusually serious tone. Why do I want her head? But as long as we can get rid of her here today, I also promise that you will be the next general manager of Tiancheng. Hua Ye waved his hand, then took a deep look at Binghua, who was staring at him, and then turned around without hesitation and left the hall through the metal French doors on the side wall of the throne. Judging from Binghua's defense methods that almost broke through the throne platform just now, Hua Ye felt that the plan to surround Binghua was not safe. For the sake of his own life, Hua Ye decided to focus on safety and go to a safer place to continue to pay attention. The battle in the Tiangong Hall, after all, as a king, you can't take risks with your own life, Hua Ye comforted his frightened soul just now. After Binghua watched Hua Ye leave, he had no choice but to give up the idea of killing Hua Ye. Looking at the male and female angels still fighting in the hall, his figure turned into an afterimage wrapped in thunder and rushed into the battle. Lock up. The silver lightning afterimage circled in the air, and the body of a male angel fell to the ground like a dumpling. At Binghua's super high speed, these second-generation guard soldiers were not the same at all. The enemy of unity. With the absolute speed gap, there was only one thing Binghua could do, and that was to rush over and wave the 7-killing king's sword in his hand. When the ice flower fell to the ground again, there were only 10 angels left in the hall, 5 men and 5 men. Even though Binghua joined in the process, after a fierce battle among the dozen female angels who originally broke into the hall, only 4 were left at this moment, and the rest left their young lives here forever. In the main hall. Sky Sword King, the king will be afraid of your fighting ability, but I will not. As a third-generation warrior, you will inevitably perish here today. After Huaya left, the commander of the Imperial Guard, who had been relatively silent before, began to talk more. "Ah, is that all you want to say? Then we really don't have anything in common, but there is one thing I'm curious about. Isn't the commander of the guards Xingye? When did he become? Oh. By the way, I still don't know your name. Can you repay me, so that I can at least know that it is the angel who will die under my sword?" Binghua said as he walked in front of the 4 injured female angels and vaguely protected them behind him. Seeing his queen's behavior, the 4 female angels suddenly felt warm in their hearts. The commander of the Imperial Guard snorted coldly and stepped forward, holding the cross sword in his hand in front of him. The eyes behind the blade stared at Binghua with murderous intent. "Remember, the one who is about to kill you is the new commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guard, Bohehua." After saying that, Bohehua rushed towards Binghua, raised the cross sword with a faint orange glow in his hand and struck down with all his strength. Boom! A shock wave of energy spread out, like a puff of orange dust and smoke blown out of thin air. Binghua just held his sword horizontally in front of him and blocked Bohehua's downward slash that was filled with dark energy, and he looked extremely relaxed. Bohehua was a little shocked when he saw this. According to his information, Binghua should be a 3rd-generation warrior, and his specialty should be extreme speed, not strength. So what is going on now? Binghua pushed the 7 Kills King sword forward in front of him and pushed Bohehua away. Then he leveled the 7 Kills King sword and stabbed out with the movement of the sword. Ding! As expected, Binghua's simple thrust was easily blocked by Bohehua with his cross sword, but it was also pushed back several meters by the power carried by Kisha. Binghua put down the 7 Kills King sword and straightened up from the thrusting position, and glanced at the 4 male angels opposite. "Originally, my only target was Huayet. As long as I killed him, this endless civil war between male and female angels would be over. But now I find that if I don't deal with you Huayet's minions here, you will keep popping up to stop me." As Binghua said the above words, he walked forward step by step. At the same time, the genetic engine in the dark plane began to run at full speed. Base. The 7 Killing King sword once again split into 6 handleless silver swords, and this time they were no longer suspended behind Binghua, but spread out 2 meters apart on the left and right sides. Phantom of Sword number 5, activates holographic real-time calculation projection. When this command is issued by Binghua in the control panel of the 7 Killing King's sword, the actual performance is as follows. A handleless silver sword rose into the sky above the ice flower, and a faint invisible light spread out from its center. The next moment, the light on the left and right sides of the ice flower was slightly distorted, and gradually condensed into a realistic projection of 6 ice flowers. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 199. Looking at the 6 Binghuas across from them who looked the same and couldn't see the slightest difference, Bohehua swung his cross sword and lowered his body and spoke disdainfully. "King of Heavenly Sword, you can also do these tricks to deceive ordinary angels. Don't think that a mere phantom can have an impact on the battle between us." Although Bohehua's tone was disdainful, the way he addressed Binghua Heavenly Sword King in his words revealed that he did not ignore Binghua. After all, Binghua's deeds are there. Whether it is the name of killing in the war between the Skull Galaxy and the Sar Galaxy, or the record of killing Sumari and cutting off Huayet's arm, it shows that Binghua is not as good as ordinary female angels. So delicate, and the fight just now proved this. Hearing this, Binghua didn't rush to explain. He raised the main sword in his hand, 7 kills, and pointed it at Bohehua. At the same time, other Binghua around him also raised the same sword of destiny in their hands, but their attack movements were different. are not the same. The next moment, 6 ice flowers rushed out at the same time. Some spread their wings and leaped into the air to dive and slash, some leaned forward and sprinted at high speed, while others raised their swords and charged forward. Binghua held the cross sword with both hands, and the burning orange dark energy emerged from the sword and struck in front of him. The burning orange light separated from the sword and flew out into the air, but it was easily avoided by the rushing ice flowers. Binghua was not surprised. This was to test the reality of these phantoms. If there were phantoms that couldn't dodge, they wouldn't even pay attention to them. The gene engine carried in the body of the male angel god is fully activated, and the huge dark energy is converted into the real world, showing dense burning orange energy that distorts the space. Now, Binghua was holding a cross sword that seemed to have a thick orange halo and rushed towards Binghua, dragging out a long optical afterimage that was gradually fading in the air behind him. During the charge, Bo and Hua carefully distinguished each other and found that it was impossible to tell that it was Binghua's true form, so they randomly selected one of the 6 charging Binghuas and raised their swords to chop. The air was split easily like water waves, but Binghua, who was slashed from the shoulder by the cross sword in Binhua's hand, did not change his expression and continued to slash with his sword. Binghua instantly understood that he was hitting a phantom, and then he prepared to turn around and attack the other 5 Binghua who had surrounded him at this moment. Suddenly there was a sharp cutting sound, and Binghua felt a pain in his back. He quickly leaned forward to minimize the damage to his back, and at the same time, a question mark appeared in his mind. Isn't that the phantom of Binghua behind? How could it be possible to attack yourself? Although he had such doubts in his mind, Kibo and Hua still made the most basic response of a warrior, bending down and turning around with the sword. The sword body, wrapped with highly concentrated dark energy, cut across the abdomen of the Binghua behind him and cut him in half. However, there was no blood splatter as expected. The light at the wound where he was cut in half returned to its original state the next moment. At this time, Binghua's attacks from other directions also arrived. Binghua could only hide his doubts in his heart for the time being and start dodging the attacks. But something surprising happened to him the next moment. He clearly dodged Binghua's slashing sword, but he always had cuts of varying shades of wounds on his body for no apparent reason. Binhua's counterattacks always hit disembodied phantoms, just like a peerless swordsman who obtained a peerless magic weapon and was trapped on an isolated island, with no use for his abilities. If converted to Binghua's perspective, Binghua should be able to understand what is happening at this moment. Binghua is hidden in the real-time virtual projections around him, attacking from time to time, looking for an opportunity to kill with one blow. The 5 projected ice flowers surrounding Binghua were actually not pure projections without entities. There was a handleless silver sword in each projected ice flower. Whenever the projected ice flower attacks, these handleless silver swords in the projection will also attack at the same time. Because this was the first time Binghua had seen this tactic of projecting hidden swords, and because he had no ability to distinguish energy and detect it, he was at an absolute disadvantage for a while, as if 6 ice flowers were besieging them with swords. He usually had several wounds on his body in just a moment, and his defense was full of holes due to the interference of the projection attack. The remaining 4 male angels who were watching the battle not far away were also a little shocked at this scene. Bo and Hua were the new commanders of the Imperial Guard, and they were the only generation of male angels with divine bodies among them. If Lian Bo and Hua were defeated, then their 4 angels would definitely not be Binghua's opponent. Binhua's Hung Ji unblocked the attack from the projected Binghua. After a few times, he had gotten used to it. The next moment, the king's sword in Binghua's hand should pass through the cross sword that he blocked if nothing unexpected happened. There was a crisp sound, and Binghua opened his eyes wide, because the long sword he blocked actually touched the entity. An idea suddenly emerged in his mind: the entity in front of him must be Binghua. I found you, Heavenly Sword King. Bohehua's spirits instantly increased, and he waved his sword-holding hand forward to deflect the king's sword struck by Binghua in front of him. The next moment he drew his sword and turned around. It was an extremely sharp thrust. A faint burning orange light representing dark energy even appeared on the sword. At the right time, Wang Jian was pushed away by Bohehua with his sword, and a slight look of panic appeared on his face. The attacks of other ice flowers around him also showed signs of speeding up, as if they wanted to force him to give up the attack. Generally, this undoubtedly aggravated Bohehua's suspicions, so the thrust without any force suddenly sped up a bit. The next moment, the cross sword penetrated the chest of Binghua, who showed a look of panic, and a silver sword blade emerged from behind. The confidence on Bohehua's face froze at this moment, and his heart felt cold, because there was no real feeling of hitting an object from the cross sword in his hand. Bohehua even thought for a time that he had an illusion, but he had felt the feeling of a weapon penetrating his body countless times before, and there was no way he could go wrong. Why? Why doesn't the sword feel like it's hitting an entity? While Bohehua was still thinking about this, a series of popping sounds were heard, accompanied by a splash of bright red liquid. Tick-tock. Bright red blood drops dripped on the floor, as if boiling, and gradually dissipated in the air without leaving any traces on the ground. Bohehua looked at the 4 silver blood-stained sword blades coming out of his chest. He opened his eyes wide and roared, turning around and slashing out with his sword, but there was nothing in it. But at this moment, Bohehua only felt pain in his knees, as if he had been kicked hard, and he subconsciously bent his knees and half knelt on the ground. At some point, among the 4 projected ice flowers behind Bohehua, the real ice flower also appeared there. At this moment, he was raising the main sword Tianming in his hand, aiming at Bohehua's spine and pressing down heavily. Bohehua suddenly opened his mouth and screamed. A silver sword that was twice as wide as the previous 4 silver swords that penetrated his body penetrated his spine, penetrated his chest, and drove into the ground. Binghua did not choose to walk up to Bohehua to explain to him the reason for his failure. Without even a moment of pause, Binghua reached out and took out the flaming sword that he had not used for a long time. The dark energy drive was activated, and the flaming sword, whose blade turned red, was swung down by Binghua's neck without hesitation towards Bohehua, who had his back turned to him and was nailed to the ground by destiny in a prone position. Blood spattered, and Bohehua's headless body fell to the ground with a plop. Bohehua, the newly appointed commander of the Imperial Guard, did not even leave any special impression on Binghua's mind, and he died on the spot. Super Seminary Angel Binghua. Author, Shifeng Si Wang. Chapter 200. Ding. The King's Sword and King Fate in Kesha's hand blocked the sword blade slashed by a male angel, and the long golden hair hanging on her chest was blown slightly to both sides. In a chaotic battlefield, even Kesha, who has silver wings and silver blades, cannot avoid being approached by the attacking male angel. Suffer death. Kesha. Listening to the wild words coming from the mouth of the male angel opposite, Kesha just opened her lips slightly and spoke lightly. You are not qualified enough to take my life. After speaking, Kesha used her hands hard and Wang Jian repelled the male angel. Before it could attack again, Kesha waved forward gently. Base. Several shining silver blades flew out of the micro-wormhole and penetrated the male angel's figure. During this period, another male angel broke through the female angel's defense net and rushed in around Kesha, but Kesha raised her finger and swiped in the air. Several rays of silver light flashed around Kesha, and the 4 male angels who were attacking sprayed out a stream of bright red and headed towards the bottom. In an area outside the field surrounded by many male angels, Chen Xing sat on a metal-carved seat and looked at Kesha, who was extremely brave on the battlefield, with the corners of his mouth raised unconsciously. How many can you kill, 1,000 or 10,000? Sooner or later you will die here because you cannot maintain the high-intensity micro-wormhole to carry the silver blade. Chen Xing is the culprit why Binghua's decapitation operation was exposed and was used counterattack. When the female angel behaved abnormally, Chen Xing had a very vague guess in his mind. In addition, he had done in-depth research on the fighting styles of the four angel queens. He quickly decided to test the female angel's purpose first to verify it. My own conjecture. On the surface, Chen Xing continued to defend against the sudden fierce attack launched by the female angel, but secretly deployed some troops on various defense lines. When Kesha appeared and launched a fierce attack on Tiangong's position regardless of casualties, but when there were no other three angel queens supporting her, Chen Xing felt that the target of the female angels must be King Huayet. In addition, Kesha's offensive was very fierce and quickly reached the outer defense line of the Tiangong. Chen Xing came up with a temporary plan, which was to surround Kesha and set a trap on the Tiangong. Because Kesha appeared on the battlefield, Chen Xing knew that he 11 was not good at fighting, mainly because he had no record to show off. Therefore, the one who will attack the Tiangong must be one of the two angel queens, Liang Bing or Binghua. In the end, as expected by Chen Xing, angels attacked the Tiangong. After receiving the news, Chen Xing decided not to hide it. He led his troops from various fronts to decisively cut Kesha's retreat and besieged him here. If nothing unexpected happens, Kesha, who is surrounded by troops several times her own, will not be able to escape death today, even if she has been promoted to a divine body. The only difference is how many troops are required. There is no doubt that Chen Xing is the kind of commander who doesn't care about the sacrifice of his men. He has been using refueling tactics to ensure that there will be no gaps in the angel army surrounding Kesha. Now more than an hour has passed, and more than half of the subordinates brought by Kesha have been surrounded and killed, and only the other half are still relying on their remaining fighting spirit to support themselves. In addition, Kesha's single-target lethality surprised Chen Xing, because Kesha's combat effectiveness has exceeded the scope of third-generation warriors. Although there are many angels among the female angels who use new technologies and new tactics, they cannot escape the limitations of computing power. But now, hundreds of male angels have fallen under Kesha's silver blade, and it seems that Kesha can persist for a long time, which has to make Chen Xing think about whether there are any loopholes in his plan. While Chen Xing was thinking hard, what he didn't know was that on the Tiangong, the biggest change in the plan had already occurred. After Binghua executed Bohihua, the handleless silver sword that originally penetrated his body flew out automatically and returned to the form of the projected Binghua. Do you choose to leave, or die here with your commander-in-chief? After Binghua pulled out his main sword Tianming from Bohihua's body, he turned to face the remaining male angels present and spoke coldly. It seems you have made a decision. After seeing the remaining four male angels raising their cross swords in an offensive posture, Binghua closed his eyes and murmured. The next moment, the 5 projection clones that had been stationary around Binghua all rushed out, leaving Binghua to move forward slowly. At the same time, the main sword Tianming in his hand began to brew a flame bombardment. King of Heavenly Sword! Don't think that a mere phantom can kill us. The deputy commander of the guards who had been standing there shouted loudly and led the 3 guards commanders behind him to attack the Binghua projections that were charging towards them. A minute later, accompanied by the clanging sound of the long sword falling to the ground, the last male angel in the Tiangong hall was penetrated through the chest by the handleless silver sword hidden in the projection of Binghua. Binghua, on the other hand, stepped straight past the severely injured deputy commander of the Imperial Guard, leaving behind a slightly ironic remark. So what if it's just a projection? You still can't beat it? Arriving in front of the energy barrier that had previously blocked him from killing Huaye, Binghua raised his head to prepare for the flame bombing, and then slashed down with the main sword Tianming, whose blade glowed red. In an instant, the burning red light collided with the translucent blue energy barrier, and the two quickly offset each other, bursting out dense energy turbulence. For a time, dense energy circuits appeared on the walls of the hall. Binghua's jet black long hair was blown back and flew violently. Looking at the trembling energy barrier in front of him, he opened his mouth and let out a low drink, pressing down on the main sword Tianming in his hand with all his strength. Just as the chaotic world ushered in the moment of creation, a huge vertical crack appeared in the violent turbulent red-blue energy flow, separating the violent energy flow. Then, as if there was a short circuit, the energy circuit on the wall of the hall became extremely bright for an instant and then immediately went out and disappeared. The blue energy barrier blocking the front of Binghua has disappeared without a trace, leaving only the throne-high platform in a mess. Binghua turned his head slightly and looked at the remaining 4 female angels in the hall who were slightly injured but wanted to follow them and gave instructions. If you are injured, just stay here. I will chase Huaya alone. The queen is. No, but, since you still recognize me as the queen, you will obey the order. After saying that, Binghua turned around, swung out a dark energy sword energy, and blasted through the French metal door that Huaya left with a bang. The lightning on his body flashed and disappeared, and he rushed into the passage. Holy crap! There are so many angels surrounding that bitch Binghua, but they can't even win. They're all trash. Huaya pushed away the female angel who was serving him and kicked away the long metal table in front of him. The scene in the void of the room stopped at the scene where Binghua executed Bohehua. No, I can never stay here any longer. If I continue to stay here, I will definitely be found by that bitch Binghua. But when he thought about the consequences of abandoning the Tiangong number, Huaya couldn't bear it. The Tiangong number was a symbol of the King of Angels. Abandoning it would be equivalent to admitting defeat, and the consequence would be to lose the support of most male angels. Because angels will not support an incompetent king who abandons the Tiangong number, the symbol of the King of Angels. But at the same time, Huaya was extremely afraid that Binghua would kill her and cut off his head. In the end, Huaya simply asked his deputy, the attendant Kunpeng who was usually responsible for conveying his orders. King, I think the green hills are still there, so I won't worry about running out of firewood. Kunpeng didn't dare to make a decision for Huaya, but at the same time he didn't want to die, so he could only say this.